All right, I stepped outside the house today and that weather was nice. Would you not agree? That weather was nice. All right, fall is right around the corner, or it's practically here. Although it's practically here, my wife was saying that there was a couple of days last week, or this past week, that got up to like 95, 96 degrees. So it's still kind of warm. So anyway, a little bit different note. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 5, verse 45, please. Matthew chapter 5, and verse number 45. Matthew chapter 5, verse number 45. Altogether, please. Matthew 5:45. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Again, please. Matthew 5:45. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. One more time, please. Matthew 5:45. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Tonight, excuse me, goodness gracious, I got my times mixed up. Today, we're going to be talking about some storms. And we had a youth camping trip this weekend, which I didn't get to stay for all of it, but we had a time where everybody got to either mention a prayer request or give a few thoughts on what, some things that they were going through. And so I decided to talk about some storms. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk some more about that this morning. And in life, we go through storms. Now, sometimes those storms can be really simple, and sometimes they can be really complicated. And I remember when I was living in Kansas, for the short times that I was, because I was born there and raised for 6 years, and then we moved to San Antonio for language training and missionary training, I guess you could say. But during that time, I remember a few things, but not a lot. It wasn't until I came back that I started, developing other memories, and certain times would come back to visit family, or we would come back to, help my grandma and grandpa right before my grandpa passed away. And in Kansas, they have these summer rain showers. And usually they're not really intense. Sometimes they last all day, sometimes just for a few hours, but they're not that intense. Like out here in Florida, sometimes, and this is where we get the expression, when it rains, it pours. Out here in Florida, it's like for 15 or 20 minutes, you get a torrential downpour, and then the sun comes out and it evaporates all the rain just as fast as it came down. But out in Kansas, it's a longer, steadier rain. And I actually happen to enjoy the smell of the rain whenever it hits the asphalt. It's a very, I wouldn't say it's a sweet smell, but it's just, I happen to enjoy that smell, and also the smell whenever the rain hits, the agricultural land out there in Kansas. And of course, we have that if you go farther out towards the J area. But here we got mostly sand and clay out here. But regardless, I digress. Sometimes those rain showers that we would encounter, at the very most, would be inconvenient and annoying. If you're out running errands, you got to walk out in the rain to get to Walmart. The 2.5 minutes from your car to the front doors. It's and you got to be a little wet, but it's not really that bad. Sometimes in life we get those where it's really honestly not that intense of a storm. It's just a little inconvenient and sometimes annoying, right? However, other times, and this is where Florida comes in, sometimes we get some really nasty storms that are ugly and brutal. And we call those hurricanes, right? And there's nothing fun about those storms. They come in, usually depending on how fast the wind is moving, they come in, they destroy just about everything in their path. There's lots of wind, there's piercing rain, there's lots of property damage. Depending on the severity of the storm, your power could be out anywhere but from 4 days to 3 weeks. It depends on when, the power company gets out there to help you out. But nobody likes going through those storms. I wouldn't say anybody likes going through the simple rain showers either, but nobody for sure likes going through the nasty, ugly ones. But I'm going to take you to some scriptures here, and I think y'all know where I'm kind of going with this. If you go to Mark chapter 4, please. The book of Mark, chapter number 4, verses 36 through 40. Mark chapter 4, verses 36 through 40. It says, "And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships. And there arose a great storm." Oh, excuse me, I need to read verse 35. That's important. "And the same day, when the even was come, he saith unto them, Let us pass over unto the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships. And there arose the great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awake him, and said to him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? And he arose and rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said unto them, Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith?" And so when we go through these storms in life, whichever storm you go through, and I honestly, it's my personal opinion that every person pretty much gets an equal number of both in their life, whether it's the little shower or whether it's the hurricane, that we have to remember, just like the disciples had to remember, that during those storms, Jesus is always with us. He's in the boat. Now, he might, sometimes we might think he's asleep on the pillow back there, but it doesn't mean he abandoned us. It means the teacher is always quiet during the test. He's always quiet during the test. And Brother Donnell just laughed, and I'm telling you right now, whenever I would take tests in his class, you could hear a pin drop, and it was carpet in there, so which is kind of difficult to hear a pin drop in carpet, but you could hear it, okay? And he was always quiet during that test, right? But the teacher's always quiet during the test. Sometimes God purposefully put storms in your life to test you. And sometimes you just get a storm. Sometimes God is not specifically putting a storm in your way. Sometimes you just get a storm. And it could be a nice summer rain, or it could be a hurricane. And it doesn't matter, because guess what? If we go back to our text verse, I'm using my phone here. Come on now. If we go back to our text verse, Matthew 5:45, let's go back there real quick because it's important. Matthew 5, it says that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter if you're saved or not, doesn't matter what your bank account looks like, doesn't matter whether you go to church on a regular basis. Sometimes you're just going to get a storm. And that's okay, because Jesus is always and will always be in your boat. He might be asleep for a little bit, but he's going to wake up. How many of y'all were here during Sally? Raise your hand. During Hurricane Sally. Okay. Put your hands down real quick. How many of y'all were here during Ivan? Okay. Now, I don't know all the other hurricanes out there, but during Sally, I was still working with the sheriff's office in Santa Rosa, and they activated us and they sent the school resource officers to different parts of the county, and I went down to Navarre. And we sat there until we were needed for a couple of days. The first day was more of a kind of a preparation day, and the second day was the actual hurricane. And I remember when the rain stopped, my sergeant in charge, they sent us out to different intersections to put our lights on and make sure everybody is knowing that we're out there and keeping everybody safe, and we're aware of, all the traffic hazards. And so I'm sitting out there, and we had to respond to a medical situation. And after the situation was over, I'm looking around, and the sun is out. It's a little windy because a hurricane just came through, but the sun is out, and it's beautiful. Folks, when you go through whether it's the nice rainstorm or whether it's the hurricane, the sun will come back out. The birds will start chirping, and you will be humbled that God said, peace, be still. And we have to remember that, because I'm telling you right now, we're not thinking about that during the storm. How many of y'all have ever had to change a tire in the rain? It's not fun, okay? You're getting soaked, you're dirty. Depending on where you are, it's muddy. It's not fun. You're not thinking about the sunshine right then. You're thinking about how to get that lug nut off. But when that sun comes out, it makes a world of difference. And we remember that God is always in control. We remember that he has always been in the ship with us, and he never abandoned us. So let's remember that whatever storms we go through in life, Jesus is always in our ship.